Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Butterworth, Account Executive at Microsoft. I have the wonderful Lee Hickin, National Technology Officer for Microsoft ANZ with me today. Lee has been with us for about 15 years and is the master of all Microsoft technologies. We're going to kick into some questions.
Sounds good.
So look, I think it's fair to say everybody is talking about AI, whether it's social media, whether it's work, it's everywhere. But fundamentally, what is AI and why should organisations care?
And isn't it exciting? Just everybody is talking about AI. It's just an unprecedented level of excitement and interest. And it's an amazing time for Microsoft and for us to be in this place and to help our customers with this technology. But there's a lot to unpack. Like you say, what is AI? It's not new. So, of course, AI has been around for a very long time, but it's sort of evolved over the last almost 50 years now. I mean, we started off with AI and machine learning as being what people traditionally thought about it as being a tool to help us sort of coalesce and understand data. And we would use AI to maybe help us understand what data is telling us. We often talk about sort of looking for the forest in the trees, understanding kind of where's the detail in all of this complexity. That was the AI that we've been using for a long time. And of course, our Azure Cognitive Services are built very much on that idea of what we can do to help customers deliver these machine learning and algorithm-based artificial intelligence services. Of course, something magical happened in the last 5 or 6 years, which was the birth of generative AI. And of course, it all came to light on November 30th last year, 2022. ChatGPT kind of changed the mode and everybody's suddenly talking about AI, which is great. And there's been a journey to get there. Generative AI has been sort of developing over the last few years. And in that, Microsoft's been developing a partnership with OpenAI. So OpenAI, one of the founding companies in this world of generative AI, they developed the platform called GPT, Generative Pre-trained Transformer. We don't need to go into the details of it, but that's what it is. And they started building that, and we engaged a partnership in about 2019 that has led to this point now where we're able to bring to our customers, to our New Zealand customers and to our customers around the globe, access to this hugely powerful generative AI service that is almost an unlimited box of tricks. Like the things that people can do with AI and why organizations should care about this is the potential, just the ideas of what you can do when you start to understand that you can talk to data. You can ask questions of your information. You can ask this AI system to do things that we as humans really struggle to do at scale. This idea that it can look at information and then summarize very complex ideas. It can help you look at a piece of unstructured information and extract the structure from it. And these are the kinds of things that we're seeing customers use it for today. It's an incredibly powerful tool.
It's such an exciting time. And I think, as we sort of start to kind of develop use cases around what we can do, specifically with ChatGPT, it's just incredible.
Yeah, it is crazy. Yeah. But stuff we're seeing people do. I guess it's probably interesting to talk a bit about how customers are using this technology, because that's really where the rubber hits the road. I think one of the challenges with generative AI is, people have used ChatGPT and they've kind of figured out it's a great tool to, write recipes, create poems, or ask wild and wacky questions. But actually, when you get past that and start exploring, okay, what can this do for my business? What can this do for my customers or the citizens I serve? That's where it really starts to light up. So when we think about use cases, I mentioned summarization earlier on. I mean, there are 2 or 3 things that really spring to mind to me that light up the power of it. Almost every customer I speak to has huge amounts of information, either about their own business, about the policies and structure of their business, or about the customers they serve. That information is typically locked up in, forms and records and information that's filed away, digital or not digital. A tool that can help you extract the summary from that and help you understand what's going on. I'll give you a very concrete example. Think about a customer service agent who is constantly dealing with calls from customers who maybe have challenges with your product or service or want to understand more about what your service offers for them. And those customer service agents are trying to synthesize masses of company information or past experiences. Something like a GPT, an OpenAI service, can take all of those past experiences, all of that conversation we've ever had with that customer, summarize it into 4 or 5 lines of immediate information that customer service agent can immediately respond to the customer with, completely transforming that experience of customer engagement and helping people because we're straight to the point. The other one that I really, really like, and I've touched on it, is this, reasoning over unstructured data, because I can now extract content from huge amounts of paperwork that typically look just like walls of words. I can now have the system kind of give me intent. But what's something that these AI systems do that is so unique is this idea that they can pull together, synthesize multiple bits of information. The way people are doing that today is you see them, they'll go to ChatGPT and services like that, and Bing, hopefully using Bing as well, and they'll ask it to give me a recipe in the style of a famous poet, or give me the style in the style of Shakespeare. Now, it's funny and it's interesting, but think about how complex it is to synthesize something so different to each other, Shakespearean writing style and a recipe. But AI can do that, and it can do it for your business data too. It can synthesize very complex, distant ideas in your business that come together to create this whole new idea. And the last one, which is based on that, is we can use AI to think of new things. And an example I've used a few times in conversations with boards is often boards are asked to consider new proposals, new ideas, and they're given a point of view on that idea. Here's the proposal the business wants to invest in, idea X or problem Y, and they just get fed that information, and they kind of have to make a decision with one view of the world. Well, a tool like GPT could be a tool that a board could use to say, hey, we've been given this proposal. What are the counter arguments? Why wouldn't this work? What does this proposal not tell us about this system? And the idea that you can use it to think of things that we as humans often we struggle to do because we think about what we want. It's an amazingly powerful tool. When you have a New Zealand customer, a great New Zealand customer doing exactly this. Farmland's here in New Zealand, one of the very early adopters of OpenAI, has been using OpenAI to do exactly that. They're extracting all this information about how their customers work with their brands and understand their brands and feel about their brands, to summarize that and really capture customer intent and customer sentiment so that they can service those customers better.
Yeah, it's incredible. I know that, within the accounts that I support, this week alone, I've had 3 different use cases pop up that's all around summarizing information and essentially being able to make quicker decisions for citizens of New Zealand. So it's super exciting.
Awesome.
I think, what we sort of hear about AI and really new technology in general, we know that there's a huge amount of opportunity, but there's also some risk.
For sure.
And so, what's sort of your views on how do organisations mitigate that risk when deploying, new technologies?
Yeah, no, it's an important point. I'm glad you brought it up. We can't hide the fact that, as powerful as this AI is, and particularly that's with the focus on generative AI and open AI and the language models that we're using, there's this risk of what people refer to as hallucination. And this is a sort of a nice fancy word for the fact that the model will just ultimately make things up. And it's not doing it sort of maliciously. If you sort of understand how the model's working, it's just trying to think of the next words that make sense. It doesn't really always know the answer, but it knows that it knows how to coherently speak about that. And so we see these situations where, these GPT tools will create an answer that reads very well, but is made up or not true, or a slight variation of the truth. And so it leads to this conversation we have to have with customers about building mitigations and mechanisms within their organization to understand that situation, recognize it's there, and then be able to react. And so here at Microsoft, we think heavily about responsible AI, and I'm privileged to sit as the responsible AI lead for Australia and New Zealand, which means I get to see a lot of the conversations we have with customers about the responsibility. And, we'll use words like trusted and ethical, but I think we like to frame ourselves around the idea of responsible because it's a shared responsibility. We take responsibility for building these tools and making them available and building the sort of security boundaries around them to make sure they work for customers' data privacy needs and all of those important considerations. But it's also important on customers to understand that as they build tools with this, they maybe need to think about some sense of governance, some organizational structure that's recognizing and working with the tool to identify when it may or may not drift off from expected outcomes or conversations. And that's partly about the way we give the technology to customers. So we make the technology easy to adapt. I'll give you a very tangible example. If any of you have used the Bing AI tool, and I hope you all are,
yes, yeah.
One of the things you'll notice is it initially let you have long conversations, and then it started dropping that conversation down to 5 turns And then we sort of grew that number. And you might ask it a question, and if you sort of start talking about something that it's uncomfortable with, you're asking it for opinions or asking it to give an opinion on something that might be controversial, it'll stop the conversation. We were able to introduce those capabilities into Bing very quickly. And that mechanism we use, we give to customers in the OpenAI services through Azure. So our customers can respond in the same way. And I think what it really comes down to for me is these tools are huge, super powerful. We want people to use them, and we need them to be tested in the real world for them to get better. The value that we put into that, or the tools we put into it, I should say, to ensure that that happens in a safe way is giving customers the control to manage that risk as it comes, because the risk won't go away. But if we put in mechanisms and controls so that customers can react quickly, I think we have a good balance there of opportunity to explore the power, but also the controls to reduce the risk over time.
So Lee, you're really in the know when it comes to everything Microsoft. What else can we expect from Microsoft? Can you talk to us a little bit about Copilot?
For sure. I like to think that I'm in the know. I like to know as much as I possibly can, but I'm sure I don't know everything. But you're absolutely right. Copilot, super exciting thing to talk about as well, and very much a part of the broader AI strategy. But it's good to bring it up separately because a lot of what we've talked about already is sort of I'll call it the cloud or the infrastructure AI, the ability for our customers to tap into AI as a tool to extract knowledge or information out of this data that they already have. The Copilot world, and you would have all heard about, I think by now we've announced Security Copilot just this week, M365 Copilot, Viva Copilot, Teams Copilot. We like our Copilots. But it's a really important word to define what we really mean by this. So when we think about Copilot, what we're really enabling is helping customers who use our products day in, day out to sort of look at AI as this tool that they can dive into and extract some acceleration of their productivity, to accelerate their use of our tools and enhance the way that these tools work for them, as a Copilot would help you do, traditional sort of Copilot job like a pilot in an airplane. It's someone you can rely on. It's someone that's there to help you navigate your way through a task or a process. And so we've announced these Copilots, and often, we're rolling them out across a whole range of our technologies. And what's exciting for me, apart from personally for me, the idea that I can sit in PowerPoint, point to a document and say, just create me a presentation. Honestly, that was it for me. That you have me at that. Like anything else is cream on top. That was awesome. But it's more than that, and it does allow our customers to really connect the tissue between how I operate in Word when I'm creating, words and content, how I'm building a PowerPoint to convey messages through a visual medium, how I use Teams as a conversational enabler across my business. And of course, Business Chat, which is the piece we announced, which is sort of the glue that ties it all together. We're really talking about this scenario where customers can talk to their data, talk to their productivity tools. Important thing to note, because of course, the first question a lot of people ask there is, well, security and controls and what information will it have access to? So the tools in the Copilot system are absolutely grounded in, and we use that term, grounded in your data and your security and your controls. So what I mean by that is, if you and I, Stephanie, were using the tools in some way, I could use documents that I have access to, but I suddenly couldn't pull information out of documents that you've not given me rights to. It doesn't just let me suddenly scour the internal Office 365 tenant for whatever information. It's still constrained by what we call the Microsoft Security Graph, the service that says, your controls and your controls and my controls and my controls and organization controls are quite different. But even with all of that control, and that's a really powerful thing, it does mean we can collaborate. We can work together on these tools. And that Copilot system, as I said, is getting rolled out over time. So we're working on the rollout of that across all of our products. It will come in time. Super exciting. But Azure OpenAI in the cloud is here today.
Fantastic. I think it's fair to say that everyone is really excited about not having to write their own PowerPoints anymore.
So. Yeah, definitely.
So look, if for a number of people new to AI, what would be your advice for someone or an organization that just wants to start testing out some of the AI functionality?
So it's a good place to start testing. I mean, getting yourself into the system, building some mechanisms, learning the processes, learning how to use it. Something that's important to point out, and we've talked a bit about this in some of the conversations, but I know that is on the mind of most customers I speak to is, if I do this, is it secure? Is it safe? Is my data being used to train the big model and therefore I can't use it for commercial data? We've seen many customers, sort of draw the line. In fact, Microsoft ourselves have said to our own employees, we don't use ChatGPT or Bing to put commercially sensitive data onto it because it's an open platform. It's a public service. When you're using these tools through the Azure network, and I talk about this idea of the Azure walled garden. Once you're inside our network and you're using our services, the open AIs you're talking to, or the GPTs, or the the Copilots, everything you're talking to is in that walled garden. So your data stays in your tenant, in your Azure subscription. It never leaves there, and it doesn't get used to train the model. So you can use Azure OpenAI with complete confidence around this issue of your data is yours, your privacy is yours, and your data is not being used to train the large models that exist out on the internet. And these models are out there today. We have these in Azure today. We have access to GPT for language, access to DALL-E for image creation. We have ChatGPT in Azure today, and we're just going to continue to build more and more of these services. So for customers who want to get started, I would suggest that, first of all, work with Microsoft on getting into the system and setting up your tenant and figuring out the use case that you're going to apply to it. We want to understand how you're going to use this because under our responsible AI principles, we think it's important to be sure we're doing the right things together, that we're helping you do our customers, that is, do something, that's going to be valuable and not cause too much harm. Work with us to help get that set up. And then we have this, what we call the playground. I know it sounds like a bad name for it, but the GPT playground where you can actually experiment, test, to your point. And I've seen a lot of customers today already on that journey to look at how does the language model work with their data? How can they start to build the capability inside their organization to use these models for the benefit that they provide? And it's a little bit of technical knowledge. Certainly, these are things we have to build. But actually, a lot of the really important learning is in how to talk to the models. You will hear us talk about things like prompt engineering, this mechanism of how we now learn to talk to AI. And that, along with the technology, is something that Microsoft is absolutely front and center here to help our customers accelerate their way through that journey.
It's fantastic. And what are you most excited about? I know it's hard to pick one thing, but if you had to pick one thing that you were most excited about with what we're releasing at Microsoft.
Yeah, that's a tough question.
Well, you can have two.
I think number one would have to be turning PowerPoint documents creation into an automated process, because I spend a lot of time building PowerPoint and I just love that. I already use Designer in PowerPoint to make my slides look pretty, but to me, that is one of those kind of little moments that just makes your life a little easier. But honestly, for me, actually, what I've been really excited by, and it's a little bit technical, but the application of ChatGPT into Azure. So many of our customers here will have used ChatGPT, I'm sure. And you've had that experience of sending it questions and getting answers back. It's kind of fun. But what you don't see is the bit behind the curtain that is how ChatGPT is programmed to behave. You'll hear us talk about things like system messages or meta prompts, but it's the way in which you describe to the chatbot how it should behave. And what has been a real eye-opener for me is when I've shown this to customers inside of Azure, where you can build the rules of how the bot will work. So you can frame what this bot should do. People assume that you have to write all this complex code to do that. You literally write in natural language, English in my case, write the rules as you need them to be. You literally write, you are a happy and friendly chatbot that is designed to help people answer their questions about Microsoft's products and services. If you don't know the answer to a question, you will respond politely and say, I don't know. You will never ask a question that you can't answer. Literally write things like that. That is coding a chatbot. And if I think about that, I think that is that's a watershed moment in just how accessible these kinds of technologies have become.
Thank you so much for your time, Lee. You're an absolute wealth of knowledge. I know that I've learned something today, and I'm sure that the audience has as well. Look, in summary, if you're an existing Microsoft client and you've got an Azure environment, test some of this technology out. It really is incredible. If you're not a Microsoft client, reach out to us, give us a call. We really want to see people trying this incredible technology out. But thanks again, Lee.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me in Aotearoa. It's been an absolute joy.